Welcome everyone to Alcoholically Correct. I am JB. I'm joined today and always by
Zach, here to tell you what you're wrong about today.
Thank you. How's it going, Zach? How's the week been treating? A couple weeks actually. We no, right? Did we even? I don't know. We've missed a couple. The holidays get hairy.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about it.
Can I tell you, we had one loyal fan ask me what was going on. They were like, "You missed time," and I was like, "It was 1 week. We missed, but now we missed 2 weeks just to mess with their heads." So, anyways, we're back and better than ever. No,
yeah, we don't want them to get dependent. Too like used to it, right?
That's it.
This is a privilege. I just wanted to let you know this is a privilege to listen to us. This is not all right.
Gosh, if we had like 7 or 10 viewers, we just lost later. Right. That's there you go. Tie in for the back end of the show. But no. So the week's been treating you well. How's everything going?
It's been pretty good. I can't complain too much. Been doing work, been getting my butt kicked. But it's a good thing. It's been fun. It's been a good time.
There you go. Hey.
Yeah, so what about with you?
2020, I was going to say this point in 2020, it's just good to have a job, right? Same thing. I'm back to work a little bit, still juggling 2 kids. Got my wife yelling at me, stop juggling the kids. You know, it is what it is, but it's been good.
So were you part of, I'm assuming you survived the next round of layoffs that Disney's thrown out there.
So yes, as far as I know so far, the other 4,000 or 5,000. I think that I heard that they are mostly Disneyland because of the extension of Disneyland. Well, California's closures.
Did you hear that from Ron DeSantis? Is that where you heard that? Did you get that info from Mr. DeSantis? Because
no, just in general, people back at work. No, remember, it wasn't even DeSantis that said that. It was Ted Cruz. But Ted Cruz is the driving force of the lying machine outside of the Trump train, because he also said coronavirus the day after the election was over would go away. And, I don't know if you've been outside, but probably not much because it didn't go away. So anyways,
also, just so you're aware, DeSantis also threw that one out there that it's mostly Disneyland employees who've been laid off. So He also parroted that quote.
Anyways, but no, like I say, so far I've been blessed. I've kept working. I think they feel pity for me with the second kid. They're like, that's expensive. Speaking of, so that actually
bad life choices.
That gives me the chance to kind of go into topic 1. But first, we should visit what we're drinking, as we always do. What you sipping on over there? Anything fun? Anything interesting?
So for my beer choices, they're few and far between. So I lost my good beer that I was really looking forward to, which was a New Belgian Accumulator, a white Indian Pale Ale. I got a sip of it. It was really good. And then it ended up everywhere. It's on my keyboard. It's on my speakers. It's on my floor. It's on my pants. But my shirt looks really nice and you can't tell. So I think that's a win.
That's the important part. Also, for our awesome viewers out there, eventually there'll be a blooper reel. And if that sounds as funny to you as it was to me, you may get a chance to see exactly what that experience looked like for poor Zach. But anyways, that's my little early Christmas gift to let people know that'll be coming eventually. Anything fun for the shot?
No, just straight vodka. So you're drinking Celebration, huh?
I'm back to my Celebration. I gotta say, first of all, I have to finish it. I would never waste beer, and I'm not having people over, and my wife, is pregnant, and my daughter drinks mostly seltzers. She's only 2. So, so I gotta finish it. But I know last week I said I really wasn't enjoying it that much. It's growing on me a little bit. So hopefully by the time I get through the end of it, I will, wish that I still had it, but hopefully not enough to think to buy it again because I don't like it that much. Oh, you got Yingling.
Makes sense. Yeah, I have Yingling to follow up because I didn't have very much beer because of things that happened. And so I was like, I've got like 4 good beers and then I've got Yingling back up. No, I don't have 4 good beers.
Nice.
I just have a lot of Yingling backup.
Well, you know what? Yingling has shown up throughout this, mostly on my side of the aisle, the internet. But that gives me a really great intro to topic number 1. So should we go ahead and throw back a shot?
Perfect.
I just got my normal rum over
shall.
here. Nothing fun, but I'll take it. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Yep. Oh, boy. It's always vodka.
So over the last week or two, I've heard a lot of different things that I kept thinking like, wow, that would have tied into an episode that we've recorded already of the show. And so it kind of, especially after the last recording, I was talking about something that was happening in the NFL due to COVID, and which was one of my topics a few weeks back. And it's changed a lot since then. So I just thought, you know what, let's do a quick rehash of a few old topics, just things that have happened, things that tie into it, anything that kind of furthered the conversation from where it was at. I do want to share the football one, but first we should, of course, go back to episode 1 as far as wearing a mask. Still a good idea, even as the vaccine is getting closer, it looks. Yes? Still wear a mask?
Wear a goddamn mask. Like, it's not hard. And people are like, oh, but look at the states that aren't doing it. No, don't look at them, because they're just showing you how bad it is. No, that doesn't work. Oh, Sweden. Look at Sweden. Sweden has the worst death rate of all the Nordic countries. What is wrong with you?
Officials in Sweden have come out and said, like, nope, you know what? We did not do the best thing because a lot of people keep dying. So we won't go deep into that, but yeah, please wear. Although I did want to say, so one of the things that made me think that was worth bringing up, Biden has made an announcement as of a couple days ago saying that one of his first acts will be asking every American citizen to wear a mask. It's not going to be, it doesn't sound like a forceful mandate because federally they say it's hard to pull off, but he's at least going to be, and that's what I always argued with Trump, is all he had to do is not say back in April and May, like, I don't really see a mask for me, and wait until like mid-June or July to be seen in a mask. It's like you said, it's not hard. Just do it because it can help, and it does help. We've had enough studies to show. But anyways, like I say, so I thought that was at least a cool thing that there will be straight messaging of, hey, we as a nation need to do this, please.
And you know what? That's bullshit. Excuse my French again, but that is complete crap that the federal government doesn't have the powers to do that. The federal government absolutely has the powers to do that underneath the CDC and the fact that they can do protections there. I mean, just take a look at the fact that the CDC has the rights in order to prevent and reduce the spread of illness to go ahead and put a moratorium on all evictions. They have the right they have the legal right to go ahead and put a moratorium on all evictions, and they did so. And so if the CDC has the right to do that, the CDC easily has the power to go ahead and implement masks. I mean, they have the right to go ahead and put people in quarantine. They have the right to do a lot of things because we've given them that that power through the legislative branch, because we're not crazy people and we don't want everyone to die.
On one hand, I hear you, and because obviously I do have such a straight line messaging of what I believe in masks and think it's such a stupid debate to actually debate. That
there's no debate.
I understand, but there is, even though there shouldn't be. But my point was this: I wouldn't mind them doing a federal mandate, and I would support them. But I also, right now, with all the craziness in these last few months until we have the transition, I don't want to encourage any extension. I mean, there's people talking about suspending the Constitution to do a revote ran by the military. Literally, like, yeah, dictator, like, country stuff. From the people who like, oh, I'm all for the Constitution. And then they're like, we need to temporarily suspend the Constitution. Actual words.
How?
Yep. Anyways, that would be a different debate in a way. We're not even going to discuss it, but no. I'm going to go to a more fun one, even though it's not fun, but nobody died, hopefully, knock on wood. So my NFL COVID revisit. So my Denver Broncos a few weeks back, don't know if you heard much about this. All of their quarterbacks were either exposed or had came down with COVID. They apparently broke protocol as well as far as how they were hanging out and stuff. And that's what one of the radio hosts I was listening to talking about it happening was it needs to be the president and the vice president never travel together. At this point, you can't have these people in the same room because if one goes down, you can't lose the whole group.
But it's also just one of those things that if you just abide by the rules, you're being paid how many millions of dollars? Don't screw it up.
Well, and so they did. And so I don't know if you heard about this, but the only option they ended up having, so they have after the backup quarterbacks, usually 1 to 2 per roster, they have emergency quarterbacks, which is if every other quarterback got hurt mid-game, a certain running back that played quarterback in high school or a little bit in college or something like that, right? They decided not to use him. They called up a practice squad wide receiver who had never been on the NFL pro squad to play starting quarterback. The guy completed, I think, 1 pass, maybe 2 out of 13. Well, technically, I think he completed 2 because the second one was an interception. I think maybe he threw 2 in it. It didn't go well. You were hoping it was kind of like a Rudy situation, but no, yeah.
It's like when we play that not the Blitz but Monster Football League. It's like what happens to you. You're like, I have no quarterbacks left.
For anyone who sees that Monster Football game on the whatever Play Store or whatever, it is like Blitz though. So if you miss the old classic NFL Blitz where you can knock people's heads off and stuff, that's what this monster is. And yeah, literally that's how that game goes because you're murdering the quarterback and running backs and stuff, trying to win the game by knocking out the players.
But luckily, don't worry about it. Not all games are violent, and violent video games are great for everyone, especially growing young minds.
Of course, right? Nice revisit. Also, the other main reason I thought today was the good day for the revisit. Today is National Repeal Day. I don't know if you've heard of National Repeal Day, but it is the celebration of the date in 1933 when prohibition was signed away by another. This is a double revisit, by the way, by your favorite president, and points to him, no doubt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So good for him. Thank you, FDR. Cheers to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so National Repeal Day. And of course, we talked about prohibition a few weeks ago, too. Nothing. Oh, no, I almost said nothing else changed there. Did you hear about Congress did pass, not CARES, it's the Something Else Act today or yesterday. They passed it. Basically decriminalizing it federally for marijuana.
Okay, so the CARES Act is the one that
for
we did
COVID.
For the
Yes.
So this was a medical marijuana legalization bill, or decriminalization bill that was being passed for a federal level. So Congress passed it. Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell is going to do with it what he does with all of his other bills and adds it to his little lizard nest to try to keep him warm. He kind of just crumples it up and adds to his nest. That's what's going to happen.
I don't know if we'll do this as a topic or not, but maybe we should. The Georgia races, the runoff races, Trump is going to visit, so we'll see what happens with that. I do believe he'll run in 24. So I could see him wanting the Senate to stay Republican. But as of right now, his crackpot lawyer or former lawyers are out there publicly telling people don't vote for the Republicans in this race unless they do something about all the fraud that's going on in this election. Major air quotes for our podcast listeners. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this isn't just Trump's lawyers saying that. Some political some PACs, some super PACs are actually funding ads in Georgia that say things like Trump, Georgia, or the Republicans, whatever the two guys were, Warnock and Perdue didn't deliver Georgia for Trump. don't vote them back.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I did some research into the PAC. The PAC is actually sponsored by a Democratic guy, and he's not technically associated with any candidate, but he's definitely super Democrat, and he's just running ads repeatedly like that, just to kind of add to it.
But okay, but that goes to show you right there. In any other time that I've lived through, the party that would be kind of sneak attacked like that, like they're being right now with that messaging of don't vote for the Republicans because they aren't doing enough to steal the election for you guys. It would have been caught. They would have gone, this is stupid. Like, what? And then they would have looked into it. But now they just eat whatever they're fed. Like, they're just like, yes. And then while telling other people that they're sheep, they're like, you're such sheep. Bah. You're such sheep.
No, it's just you simply get information handed to you. You have to evaluate if it's true or not. And the way you evaluate if it's true or not has nothing to do if the person saying it is a Democrat or Republican. Right. Surprisingly, it has to do with the actual factual material that's being looked at.
Crazy idea, right? But you know what? But I realized I was talking with somebody the other day. We're going way off base, but I'm about done with this topic. So we'll start moving on unless you got anything else to revisit in the old episode world as of right now. But
well, this is one of our big old episodes. This was our media and social media and information.
That's a good point. Okay, yeah. So I like that, especially with, oh my God, I saw somebody the other day that's on Facebook being like, oh, if you don't see much of me, mosey on over to part. It's like they're writing parody. So this goes right back into what we were just talking about, because it seems so obvious to anyone who's not of like mind to that. But they were like, mosey on over to Parler and give it a look. We've got to stop this, what's the word? Censorship, blah, 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 blah. And if you're looking for the truth instead of fake news, check out OAN and Breitbart
and news.
Oh my, and yeah, what's that one? Newsweek or Newsmax? I think Newsmax.
No, Newsmax.
Can I tell you, I've been a subscriber to Newsmax for like 8 years. Isn't that crazy? I just get their email. I'm an email subscriber. Isn't that crazy?
Newsmax been around that long?
Oh, yeah. Unless I'm mixing it up. I'll literally look it up live on air. And by live, I mean whenever we recorded this on December 5th.
Newsweek. Yeah, no, you're right. It's been around that long.
Yep.
That's interesting. I don't know how I feel about you receiving that.
So wait, which one is it? It's Newsmax, right?
Yes, Newsweek is the highly publicized, highly valid thing.
Yeah, well, it's not. You're confusing the, what do you call it? Newsmax is not highly valid.
Newsweek
is good. Newsmax is terrible. But
yes,
but correct. The thing is, I'm on the emails and I almost want to keep up with it because I want to see it. Because when they're finally like, do you know, I saw somebody write on like, I don't want to name someone incorrectly, but some post that someone I actually know in real life shared. One of the top comments with like a ton of likes said, they're trying to steal this election, Mr. President, talking to Trump. Deputize every adult male and run a re-election, blah, 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 blah. You know, we won't let them take this country from us. Like, and so I want to be there when the rhetoric turns truly dangerous so that I'm ahead of it instead of behind it, at least as much as you can be. Because it's...
it boggles my mind, the idiocy that they spout. At this point, kind of what I've just started doing is going... as responding to them, at no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. Nice. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm trying to think. Billy Madison? It's definitely an Adam Sandler movie. Yeah! Yes. Okay, awesome. Okay, you know what? I'm going to say that's a good point to move on to topic number 2. What do you say?
I'm all in for that. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's take our shots. And so here we go. 3, 2, 1, cheers.
Salute. I don't know if you've ever counted down a shot. I appreciate that.
I haven't.
Incoming.
Woo. That is a lot of fun. So I was going to be taking this kind of main thing. I wanted to kind of talk with you. I ran into I ran into a fun story recently, very recently. It was about the Black Panthers, and I don't know if you know anything about them.
Wait, give me a second. Black Panthers, are they the one that's not real? There's like one of those animals is not real, like the jaguar or something. So
panthers, bobcats, jaguars, all of those in North America are the same animal, same species. Number two,
we go.
I wasn't talking about that. Yeah. Number two, I wasn't talking about that. I was actually talking about the political movement from back in the day. Black Power. Okay, so Black Panthers, Black Power.
I know of them. And of course, I was raised in a very conservative household. So you can imagine that the opinion of them, without a lot of information, of course, was that they were dangerous and they were, So I assume from what I've learned in the recent years that there's more to the story. So I'm hoping that you feel like sharing more to the story. I'm willing to hear about this. But yeah. So like I say, I'm not saying I hold those views. I'm just saying like I say, because more recently, the more I've looked into these things, the more I find points of agreement than disagreement. So I assume
so it's almost
that
like
there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like when you take a look at things from a outside perspective, one that's kind of like, hey, let me go ahead and look at this from a neutral idea, and suddenly they're not so bad. Well, That's what I'm here to tell you about today. In fact, I'm going to make you fall in love with the Black Panthers. These gun-toting, amazing folks. So, 1966, the Black Panther Party was formed. Basically, the Black Panther Party was kind of a political and social movement where you had a bunch of guys who would be having loaded guns and would be open carrying, walking around in California, in Oakland, and they were majority black people. Go figure. And what they would do is
otherwise they would just be Panthers. Otherwise they'd just be Panthers, right? No? Are there white Black Panthers? Is that not a thing? I don't know.
There were in the end. In the end, yes, there were. Near the end of that, yes. But
go ahead.
Basically, so you had these bunch of gun-toting guys, so Second Amendment advocates, all in, and they do a lot of this thing called cop watching. And that's kind of what their whole thing was. They were cop watching the Oakland Police Department, because Oakland Police Department is known for its civility, especially towards blacks, and its reasonable justice that it performs.
See, I chuckle at your sarcasm. I imagine it is what it sounds like. It's essentially making sure that stuff like the George Floyd situation don't happen.
Yeah. And so part of cop watching was having a gun with you, an open carry, fully loaded gun, because that puts you on the same level as the cops. Now, they weren't violent. They were actually, the majority of it is they would just sit in there, they would have the guns, and they would go ahead, and when people would be being arrested, what they would do is they would be there watching the cops, making sure the cops don't beat the person. And then the other thing that they would be doing is they would have a copy of the Constitution with them, or a copy of the local laws, and they would go ahead and start going, hey, just so you're aware, Mr. Whatever you are being arrested, you have the constitutional rights. These are your following constitutional rights. I suggest you go ahead and exercise your constitutional rights. And so they would be doing that. So that was in 1966. So it was a great start, right? It sounds like it's not a terrible.
That was when it was founded?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what they did.
I'm gonna, at that point, in case it doesn't really go back to their, what's the word? I guess tendencies, I don't know, but whatever, kind of their patterns, what they did as a group, what they believed in doing. And I understand fully where you support what they did and why they did it. But whether we debate it now or ever, or it's just something I mention, I feel uncomfortable somewhat, and I feel you do too to some degree, with groups nowadays of, let's say, white Americans mostly, but, you know, that say they are protecting freedoms, that walk with loaded weapons saying, hey, we're nonviolent, we're just coming to, you know, I mean, you look at those, and I feel like we talked about them in a way that was not supportive of that. And I feel like there's reasons for that, where it's like people walking around with this heavy artillery, you know, weaponry makes me uncomfortable in a way. And I'm not saying it should be against the law, but what I'm saying is you only support that fully. You're only saying that's such a good thing, right? Because you fully agree with their why and their what. But so at least I'm going to pause to mention that there are plenty of people that would do that, believing they are protecting good things like liberty and freedoms and stuff like that, even if it's misguided. Even if we sit here and poke fun at that thought process, I'm just saying it is at least worth mentioning.
No, because what we railed against, and what I've railed against explicitly, was the idea that these groups of people are actually going and creating their own form of justice. They are protecting property. They are doing this. These other guys were localized
but just like it's against the law. But just like it's against the law for police officers to beat people that they are arresting to a unreasonable level, it is against the law for people to burn down buildings, burn down cars, destroy property like that. It's still illegal. Again, all I'm saying is I think it's important at moments like this to realize, okay, wait, a person can do things that look terrible without being terrible people. Again, that doesn't go to a level of defending something like a Kyle Rittenhouse situation, because that's murder. You aren't nonviolent at that point. People got killed. And so, like I say, I'm not necessarily defending any certain situation. I'm just saying that's a really good moment to realize that people who maybe you disagree with their reasoning are doing something that you support if you agree with the reasoning. So you should at least be a little bit sympathetic to them not being terrible for doing something.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Here's the real reason why. It's very simple. No, it's okay. And this is my reasoning why there's a difference. One is an escalation of things. So we're the Black Lives Matters protesters that these guys would show up to with their guns. They would walk around with their guns at Black Lives Matters protesters. The Black Lives Matters protesters were unarmed. The cops were armed.
They weren't always unarmed.
Escalation.
That's not true. The guy in frickin' Wisconsin shot a gun into the air. You've got to be careful about that, because then
no. Because there's a difference.
You're still armed.
You are choosing one individual. Right. Okay. So one individual was armed. The group of people was not armed. Every cop is armed. Every cop was performing that. The Black Panthers were armed as a group and were watching the cops. They were only peacefully interacting with the cops in 99.9% of the cases. Now, yes, do I want people walking around with guns? Not necessarily, but at the time that worked. And there is a difference between escalation and equivalent, because they were not trying to escalate above the cops. They weren't saying, oh, the cops have these guns, I'm going to go ahead and invest in a vehicle-mounted machine gun to go ahead and counter. I'm not getting myself a Tommy gun to go show up for the cops. No, they were having a gun, armed, just so this way that the cops, quote-unquote, behaved. Now, it's not like the cops didn't have guns as well. It's not like the majority of the things where you see this one guy showing up with his gun, walking around, and not just one, these multiple guys showing up, walking around with their guns, going, we're here to go ahead and do this. Yeah, the other people that you're talking to don't have guns. You bring a baseball bat? Sure, I'm not going to be near as upset about it because that's not escalating the situation. Really.
I hear what you're
and
saying.
And that's my problem. That's my big thing.
I just outright disagree because, like I say, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that, oh, they as a group aren't armed. You don't know how armed they are. You're not there any more than I'm there to say like how many people are armed. And you don't know, and neither do I, that every single person on the other side is armed. I'm sure you could find people that aren't armed with guns. They did bring bats or nothing, and they just are there to be part of it. I mean, I'm
cool with that part.
Right. Go ahead.
But here's the thing: when you take a look at something called Proud Boys, the Proud Boys, for example, are one of the groups that are out there. They call themselves militias. The Black Panthers never called themselves a militia. They weren't trying to be a militia. They weren't trying to outgun and out-control everything. They were simply there reacting to a situation.
But
and
wait,
I think that's kind of the key difference
I don't want to derail this topic, so I want to ask, and this is a question.
No,
but you
I actually enjoy this.
Okay, good. 99.9% of the Black Panther interactions with police were peaceful, right? So you're saying there were a few just circumstances that went haywire, maybe even from the side of someone part of the Black Panther group, right? So that's what I'm saying, though. But that's again what I'm saying, though. I'm saying just like if we talk about protests and you go, you know what, 95% of the 2020 summer protests were peaceful and nothing happened. 5% had violence from either side. So there were some anti-protesters causing violence or crime and some protesters doing it. But what I'm saying is, if you can say that, it's just, the big thing for me is I think you need to realize that the majority of people, whatever they support, are not doing it from a place of actual evil. And so I'm actually not admonishing the Black Panther group. I'm saying the people who feel like they were a dangerous group and yada, 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 one, between propaganda and BS, messaging, and two, because of just, like we both said, kind of sensibilities of, no, I don't really love people walking around with heavy artillery in their hands looking like they could just end the life in a split-second notice. Like, it is at least worth mentioning that, you know what, you've got to be a little more broader viewing to say that it could be good people in the majority of circumstances with some exceptions, some 5 or 10% exceptions on any side.
Except here's where the difference is. It's the core difference. The Black Panthers weren't going against a series of white people and walking up to white people who don't have guns. They were going to a group that was automatically armed. So you know what? If I were to ever show up to a counter protest, basically, of a militia group, yeah, I would go ahead and arm myself to go ahead and equal the situation, right? That's equalizing. That's not escalating. When these guys would come to the Black Lives Matter protest, they would be escalating the situation. Kyle Rittenhouse is a perfect example. And you know what happens? He gets a bottle of water after murdering folks from the cops and a high five. So,
I understand. I understand.
I'm just saying the difference is escalation versus equivalent counter. And if the Black Panthers were railing against white neighborhoods and just did that, or railing against a group that was not equally armed, they weren't just trying to equalize a situation, because that's not what the militia groups are doing. When Kyle Rittenhouse and those groups go out to places, they are not trying to equalize. They are trying to show overwhelming force.
They're trying to intimidate.
They are not. Correct. That is the difference. They are not. The Black Panthers aren't trying to intimidate. The Black Panthers are there to. Well, they somewhat are trying to intimidate, but they're equal grounds.
Thank you.
These cops.
That's what I was about to say, though. I think you just need to be careful, and I think it's something that people, if they could realize, like, wow, people are so similar in their kind of reasoning, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this makes sense because of this and that and the whatever. It mostly comes from genuine places. The majority of those showing up, regardless of their cause, really believe whatever the understandable reasoning is. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it right. It's why you still speak out against it. But it makes it important, I think, to not just close out an entire segment of a country, of a world, really, of people that you disagree with, because you can go, you know what? They genuinely, regardless of which side they fall on, that's kind of what I'm saying, is that we need to realize, like, wow, we can talk about how great the Black Panthers are, in your opinion, because you fully agree with both why they were doing it and what they were trying to accomplish. But people fully agree with at least understandable, if not agreed upon, reasonings for doing most of what they do, most of what they show up for. It's usually from a good purpose, ultimately, for that individual.
The path to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think part of the problem here is that, right, and the other counter thing is the ends outweigh the means. The problem here is that the ends for these militia groups is nothing other than escalation and physical interactions. That is their end goal. When you look at the end goal of the Black Panthers, it was to educate and protect the rights of citizens through things like talking. All right, I think that's perspective. Not all these guys did.
I just thought that was perspective. That's all I was kind of getting at. I know we went way off, but I think it's perspective of what you support. But okay, so
but I don't
go ahead and more.
Because here's the thing. Here's a counter argument to that. If a group were trying to take away someone's guns, right? If that was what was happening, and we were actually trying to do that, if a group wanted to get together with their guns and walk around downtown Orlando or something with their guns out, I would support their right to do so. I wouldn't agree with that methodology, but I would support their right to do so, because the reason that they're bringing out their guns is to prove a point. They're not actively trying to cause problems or to get into a situation that they don't have the rights to do. A militia group going out to go ahead and protect property is not a right to be protected. That's not what the average citizen has the right to do. Average citizen does have a right to do a citizen's arrest, per se, but that is very different than going ahead and playing cop. They were playing cops. That's the difference. The Black Panthers never tried to arrest anyone. And
citizens arrest,
the key difference there.
Citizens arrest sounds like a really fun side topic for the future. So we'll revisit that debate and that conversation.
That's what I'm saying the difference there is. And again, if somebody wanted to show their gun off to prove that they're there for a Second Amendment protest, sure, that's a reason to bring a gun. I completely can. It's not for. They're not bringing it there for self-defense. These guys were bringing guns as self-defense against a bunch of guys who. The majority of what they were carrying were umbrellas, leaf blowers, and freaking cones, like literally traffic cones. That was what those guys had. And they bring out their, AK-47s. But more importantly, though, let's quick talk about that. Yes, not only Black Panthers. What does the NRA think about those guys? They want to protect their right to have guns entirely, right?
I'm going to assume not. Like,
whoa.
Right?
Well, not the Black Panthers. I'm talking about these other groups that we're talking about.
Oh, I know. I assume the other ones that they would. Yeah, I would assume they do fully support them, no?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do support those guys, the guys today. Of course, the NRA is all about the guys today. Yes, keep your guns. But the Black Panthers, they're like, oh, these are a bunch of... African Americans. These are a bunch of Negroes. Yeah, no, they can't have guns.
Oh, Lord.
And so they rallied against it to take away the guns of these guys.
Of course, which
yeah.
It's so funny. No. The other day I read something where they were saying actually the NRA used to be really pro gun, not gun restrictions, but like. Intelligent gun safety and stuff. But were they messaging that back when they were trying to shut down groups like the Black Panther group, because that was a different motivation at the time?
So it started well and went sideways real quick and was done. The NRA is actually one of my topics that I want in the future.
Yes. Okay.
That whole organization is completely off the rails. But my whole point there was, so back to the Black Panthers. So their whole point, they were out there, they were doing cop watching. They would do things like go ahead and provide the rights. They would give the rights to the people being arrested. They would do that. But that's not all they did. So it was about, so just so you know, whenever they had somebody being arrested, they would help them with their rights. They wouldn't just help black people. Now, in Oakland, California, the majority of the population was black, which is where this was started. But any race, no matter what race it is, they would work on telling them their constitutional rights, providing like pocket constitutions and local legal documents. They would do all of this to make sure that they had everything sorted. And then we had a guy. His name, what is it? It's Ronald Reagan? Yeah, Ronald Reagan.
Hey, wait. I gave FDR credit earlier in this episode. I just want it to be mentioned before you
I'm giving Ronald Reagan all of the credit for this.
Go ahead.
Ronald Reagan gets all of the credit. So unfortunately, Ronald Reagan was very angry that black people had guns. So he started to try to pass a bunch of legislation to make sure that they couldn't have guns. Also, Ronald Reagan continued along, or Ronald Reagan was basically all about taking away the guns because of, they had an equal footing with cops, and we can't have that. So there were a few different things that were taken away from Ronald Reagan or that Ronald Reagan did. What was one of them? I'm sorry. I'm trying to find in my notes what it was. Hold on. Sorry.
While you're doing this, as a kid who had a Ronald Reagan like shirt I spent like 12 to 14 hours, maybe longer, in line to walk through the rotunda when Ronald Reagan was laid in state.
Wow,
so what
really?
what did he take away? Again, gas restrictions where you could only fill up on certain days of the week depending on your license plate number. The Cold War, the wall.
Cold War, the wall. Okay.
They all ended under Reagan. Right. I'm just saying.
Sure. And you know what one of Reagan's top advisors said?
Wait, is this the guy?
Do you have
any? Is this
Lee
the guy
Atwater.
who said like, yeah, okay, yep, I know exactly what he said. I was hearing about it recently.
So one of his top advisors, so the top advisor for Ronald Reagan, the year he was elected, went out and dropped this line, and I'm going to read it not verbatim because I cannot. So
okay, good.
You start out in 1954 by saying. Yeah, you start out in 1954 by saying N-word, N-word, N-word. By 1968, you can't say N-word. That hurts you. Backfires. So you say stuff like, forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract. Now, you're talking about cutting taxes, and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this is a much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than N-word, N-word. I think it was 1981, and the year Ronald Reagan was elected. This was his top advisor, one of his top advisors. That's what he was advising on.
He was elected in 1980. He was inaugurated in 1981.
Whatever.
Also, I don't think he was.
He started office.
I don't think he was just one of his top advisors. I think he literally ran the campaign. I'm pretty sure he was the campaign consultant that or whatever the name of that actually runs the whole campaign.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, so what followed next was they were basically they got rid of the Black Panthers having guns.
So that was under Reagan. So that's 1980 something. So they had 20 years.
No, it started over Nixon.
Okay, so you just wanted to F with Reagan just so you could bring up Lee Atwater.
Because Reagan continued it. Reagan made it worse. So yeah, in any case, no, actually I think Reagan did pass the laws to get rid of the Black Panthers, the ability to have guns. Black Panther, so Reagan did. I'm trying to find the name of the rule. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Basically, Reagan did that, and then it was a continuation of the Nixon policies under his Southern strategy. So Fred Hampton was leading the Black Panthers at the time. This guy named Fred Hampton. It was about, I think it was 51 years ago to the day of December 15th that something terrible happened to him. But we'll get to that.
Oh, wait. I was just reading about Fred Hampton. That's a effed up story. I was sitting there like, why is that name familiar? And then I was like, oh, I know why. That's horrible.
Oh, yeah. So Fred Hampton was the guy who was running the Black Panthers, and he was this really charismatic, really awesome guy.
He was only like 21, right? He was really young, 21.
He was very young, yes. So one of the things that he did is he took the Black Panthers and he expanded it. He created what they called the Rainbow Coalition.
Oh.
Sounds pretty good, right?
That's still around. So isn't Rainbow Coalition ran by oh my god, I can picture him. The guy who he was at Martin Luther King's like assassination. Jesse
you're talking about Reverend
Jackson.
Jesse
there
Jackson?
You go. Yeah. Doesn't he run the Rainbow Coalition?
It's not the same group.
Oh, okay.
It's not the same Rainbow Coalition. He co-opted the term, but it's still probably along the same lines. So what the Rainbow Coalition was Fred Hampton was like, hey, this is all some crap. We are all getting shit on by the government and by everyone. So I don't like this. Do you guys like this? No. And so he would actually go out to local street gangs. And he was like, hey, we're kind of screwed here. And he went to the white street gangs at the time. And he was like, hey, so this sucks. Can we just let's all band together and make things suck a little less? So he got truces set up between all the street gangs. He then went ahead and with the street gangs as well as the other the Black Panthers, they set up free kitchens, like free just food kitchens, free daycare, free tutoring programs. They would buy school supplies. They basically they would do all this. So this was the low-level guys, and then the higher-ups would start trying to get involved in local politics and unions. So what they were doing, the Rainbow Coalition's job, and what they were doing as a group, is they were saying, hey, all these people from different groups, no matter where you're coming from, white groups, black groups, whatever else is out in California, so you had the Chinese, everyone, let's all get together and let's make our local area better, right? And so that's what they did. The problem came in, well, actually, what's kind of cool is even the white groups, they stopped wearing the Confederate flag on their stuff. They took their Confederate flag off their stuff because they had that much respect for Fred.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of a lot considering the white groups we have today. Yeah, so basically that's what they would do. They created kitchens, all these type of stuff. That's great, right? The problem is they started getting attention because of that. Fred Hampton started getting everyone, he started gathering a following. People were like, wow, this guy is really smart. This guy has made a huge change to our entire group. These guys, they're awesome. He's awesome. And that's what kind of pissed off the government and FBI and Nixon and Reagan.
Well, no, there's a big gap between Nixon and Reagan because it goes Nixon, then Ford, then Carter, then Reagan.
All of them.
I'm just
saying.
saying.
It was mostly Nixon at the time. In any case, so FBI reports said that they were basically afraid of Hampton and that he would be a black messiah. And this was a quote from their article, The Black Messiah. And show Americans how much better life could be if the wealthy were taxed for their fair share, and that public programs were more robust, bringing up quality of life and quality between the financial classes and communities. Basically, that's what he was trying to show. And his argument was, hey, if a bunch of us, ragtag, everyday average Joes are able to make this much change in the community with no government funding, what do you think our taxes could actually do if it was being spent to help everyone?
Right.
Social programs. Yay. Right. And so the FBI was really not a fan of them. So they created this thing called the COINTELPRO. Have you heard about that?
A little bit, yeah. In the article I was reading about Fred Hampton, it talked about that some.
Yeah.
It was illegal technically, right?
There was a lot of terrible things that happened with that, but yes. So that was where Hoover, in 1969, Hoover had sought the COINTELPRO program. Huh?
I said J. Edgar. I was trying to think Hoover.
Yes. J. Edgar Hoover, sorry, yes. He sought to prevent the rise of a messiah that would unify and electrify the militant nationalist movement. That was his quote for the COINTELPRO. Basically, these guys are trying to go ahead and create change, and I don't want change, so let's not do that. So, so it turns out that basically the FBI was like, no, I don't want this. We don't want this guy. So they started doing some shady things. They actually got Hampton killed. That was what they did. They literally assassinated Hampton. They did a raid with the Chicago police.
Yep.
So tell me what you know.
No. I mean, that was essentially it. That they busted into the house in Chicago, or like the Chicago police busted in. They shot up
illegally.
They dragged his pregnant wife out of the bed that he was in. They shot up the house essentially of a bunch of people from the Black Panther Party. And with him, there's one of the witness accounts is that he was shot in the shoulder in the initial shootout, so to speak. And it was overheard, drag him out here, he'll make it. And then there were multiple shots heard, and it was he's good and dead now, and they had shot him in the head a couple of times, basically.
Yep, nope. So it came from Washington and the COINTEL program. Basically,
and they got acquitted,
they forced
right?
this raid to happen.
And the police got acquitted, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, good. Hopefully not. That's what I thought I read.
They sort of did. They did get acquitted, but what happened later is the family...
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, the family sued, and they were found to have been complicit in literally an assassination of Fred Hampton. It's just it boggles my mind. This guy who's out there promoting rights. Yeah, he has guns. This should be a freaking militant right wing agenda. Wet dream is what it was. This is the we're out there. We're campaigning for rights. We have our guns. This is great. And what ends up happening is because it's a bunch of black people that end up helping everyone. Oh no, black people. We shouldn't give them guns. Which at the time was far more of the argument than not. And just the idea that, oh no, this is going to create they're going to get whatever. They're just idiots. They're idiots. It's literally about, they were out there making the community better. And the problem was it was making the government look bad. Because they were doing more with no resources than the government was with taxes. And it was creating a upset populace. It's nothing at all like what's happening today, though. Nothing at all. The populace is not getting upset about.
It's worse now. They don't even need to kill the people. They've realized, they're like, that's a waste of time. If anything, that just rallies people against us because we actually let people die. Like, we just have to tell them it's not true and lie to their faces, and they'll just eat it up, like we were talking about earlier. Like, medical.
Exactly.
I meant to bring this up in the recap of old show, whatever, revisit of old shows. With medical, I just had a baby. I pay the most for medical care I can, but my wife and I, like, we pay like, oh my God, how many? Like $500 a month in insurance for years and years and years. We've had 2 babies and like very few medical issues. Thank you, Jesus. But it's going to be like $6,000 plus all told to have this baby on top of all the medical insurance that I pay. And yet they'll sit there and they'll tell you that single payer is the devil. And and there's gonna be death panels, as if, like I said, I know I'm going off topic, but my point is, you just get lied to so much about these things, and people just eat it up and fight for it. They're like, here's this BS I was told, now let me spout this BS in your face. And
it doesn't take much research, even in that case. Like, you take a look. Yeah, every other nation is paying just about as much as we pay for healthcare in terms of premiums.
Right.
But the difference is half of those premiums you don't see. It just comes out of your paycheck, hidden in what more the company pays on your behalf.
The overwhelming majority.
You
mean now? I'm sorry, you meant now.
Well,
you meant now. Go ahead.
Yes, and in the other, but yeah, so basically the amount that's paid for insurance in the United States on average for the premiums is about what every other country pays for their citizens, which sounds great, right? Oh, so we're paying the same. Those other countries don't have copays. Those other countries don't pay afterwards. They pay up front.
Yep.
Apparently, when you add layer on layer on layer of profit takers, you suddenly are no longer doing well or comparable.
Right. Okay. I didn't mean to veer us way off topic with that. I know. My point was, you get lied to. My point was, you just get lied to about these things, and they, like you said, the government will literally murder, but now they don't have to. They just lie to you to hide the BS that they're doing and the shenanigans that they're running. And it's just crazy because it's always been that way.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of done with this. I mean, there was a lot of crap that happened. Overall, I want to say Black Panthers got a bad rap. They weren't bad. They weren't terrible. They weren't this group that was out to go ahead and, usurp the government. But essentially,
Reagan shut him down. Reagan was the one that killed him with his legislation.
Yeah.
Started with Nixon. Reagan finished it.
Reagan definitely finished it. He got away all of their guns. They couldn't have guns anymore. And it's just like, wait, I just thought that was the opposite of what they were doing.
Conservatives fight
Doesn't
for
matter.
Anyways, all right. So topic number 3.
Yeah. Topic number 3. All right. Cheers.
So
topic number 3 for me. Yep.
That got stuck in my throat.
Went down the wrong throat?
It didn't go down the wrong, but you know how sometimes, yep. You're like, that last swallow. Yep. Okay, I'm good.
So here I kind of wanted to take a continuation. I wanted to swing it over and talk about your rights. I want to take on my own Black Panther thing and talk about some of the crap that you have rights to that you might not know. Or that your rights might not be as strong as you think they are. So, you know about the Fifth Amendment, right? Yes, sir?
I plead the Fifth on the Fifth Amendment, which means that I don't want to incriminate myself for not knowing enough about the Fifth Amendment to tell you that I know what the Fifth Amendment is.
That is pretty much perfect. I am cool with that answer because that describes the Fifth Amendment.
Good.
Yeah, so you have the right to not go ahead and put yourself in jeopardy. You have the right to shut up, is basically what it is. Now, let's talk about your phone real quick. Let's assume you have a bunch of incriminating evidence on your phone.
Okay.
Now you have a device that's basically you and your memory. And the question is, what rights do you have to protect the information on that device? Right? It's tough. It's not easy. So,
if I'm Tom Brady and I told my trainers to deflate my balls a little more than the legal amount so that I can squeeze them better, that sounded weird. I have the right to destroy my phone before I don't have to turn it over to the NFL, I assume. Yep, exactly. Destroy my balls. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. So is that my right? Can I destroy my phone?
Completely left turn. you. All right, you know what? Whatever makes you happy in bed, that's you. You're like, you do you, son.
Tom Brady. That was my Tom Brady impersonation. Okay, so what are my rights with my phone? For real, I do want to know.
So it's actually interesting. So depends on some of it depends on what type of how your phone is being locked. So for example, how is your phone locked and unlocked?
I have a fingerprint access with a passcode in case the fingerprint, if I lose my finger.
So, under the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to keep your password to yourself. You do not have to share your password. Now, if a court really, really, really wants to get access to it, does a warrant, all that stuff, and you refuse to share your password, they can hold you in contempt of court, but you have the right to not share your password. And if anybody ever asks you to share your password, tell them no, repeatedly. Never, ever accept
no.
And if they start to get... gonna say no.
That's right.
But yeah, no, never give out your password to anyone ever under any circumstances unless I'm asking for your password because I'm doing something terrible to your account. Yep. But no, never share your password, and especially not with any law enforcement. You never have the legal obligation. You never have the legal obligation to go ahead and share your password with law enforcement. That's an important takeaway there. The other thing is that, though, now the fingerprint lock, that's where it gets interesting, and the face lock. Those are biometrics. Technically, you cannot plead the fifth to your face or your fingerprints, right? You can't, somebody goes to take your fingerprint, you can't go, oh no, I plead the fifth, because that's a physical thing.
So I have to acid burn them. I have to acid burn them off, is what you're saying. I have to remove them.
Yes,
physically. Okay, that's my only option.
Yeah, and so that's exactly, and that's the Fifth Amendment. So that's your Fifth Amendment right to not provide that doesn't extend to your fingerprints, which is why biometric locks are actually kind of scary on your phone, because effectively they can warrant your fingerprint and your finger. And if they get a warrant for your finger or your fingerprint, they can force you to unlock your phone, or they could.
Okay.
There's been a change recently-ish. So I think 2018 is when it passed a law that made it a heck of a lot harder to get access to it, because your fingerprint, without your fingerprint, they can't use the fingerprint. Now, so the cool part is that luckily, most phones nowadays, when you turn them off, if you're ever getting arrested, turn off your phone.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's two different things.
Destroy it. Snap it in
basically, no, never do that. That's not useful. So there's two different options. But number one, if you have incriminating evidence on your phone, turn off your phone. Because if you turn off your phone, when it turns back on, the password will be forced.
True.
Right? You can't unlock your phone with biometrics.
Right.
So turn off your phone. Now let's assume, so that's kind of the key thing there, because you can't unlock a phone with biometrics. Now, the FBI and all of them aren't actually able to break encryption on phones easily. It's surprisingly difficult for them to break the encryption on phones. It sounds stupid, But if you have a touch screen unlock, like if you have like a 4-digit thing, it's a lot easier for them to break into it. But if you have like an actual password on your phone, like a longer password, they're not going to be able to break it because it's actually really difficult. So what they end up having to do is they end up having to clone the device, and they clone the device like over 1,000 devices or whatever, and then they have each device trying different passwords, and then when it gets locked out, they reflash the device and try again. It's a painful process for them, but they're able to break it eventually. But by that point, it's taken so long that you don't really have to worry about it. In fact, FBI sued Apple to go ahead and get Apple to provide them a way to decrypt a device.
I heard about that. And they wouldn't do it though, right? Or did they end up winning?
Apple told them to go shut it.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. So people are like, oh, but terrorism. Screw terrorism. If you are really actually... So here's the thing. So that Apple key, if you were to give a backdoor to the FBI to be able to break in, that means anyone can break in. So the way that it works currently is the local device has a local password that only it knows, that you can't really extract from it. There have been a few ways they could through bugs. They've all been fixed. So the FBI can't just extract the password. So the data is stored in an encrypted manner, and you can't get access to it without actually doing the decryption properly.
Wow.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the idea is that people are like, oh, but what about terrorists? Well, if you want to go ahead and handle for terrorists, you have to give a backdoor to the FBI. And I'm sorry, if you give a backdoor to the FBI, you give a backdoor to me and every other security researcher out there. Well, I'm not.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
You give a backdoor to everyone.
Right.
You either give, if you give a backdoor to any government agency, that backdoor exists for everyone to access.
And I just want to clarify, I don't judge anyone for their lifestyle, but me personally, I don't give a backdoor to anyone. That's not something I'm into. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's just me. No? Just me?
Okay. That's good.
I just,
Well, you like your balls being crushed. So, I mean, everyone's got their kinks.
That's what I mean. I have to draw my line somewhere. No back doors. Crush
It's
my
just
balls.
there.
No back doors. That's right. Zach, on that note, I have to pause for a second. I gotta pee. I've got to do it this time.
Yeah. Go.
So, my week. Anyways, we were talking about my kinks, but we should move past that. We should go back to what we were really talking about, which was Apple and the backdoor encryption. So they couldn't allow backdoors. Why?
Right. So Apple was sued by the FBI and they wanted backdoors, and the reason is that they're like, it's hard to break your encryption. Yeah, no joke, it's hard to break it. That's what they were designed for. We designed a chip that you can't, that all the data is safe on. That was the whole point.
It's hard to break
if I create a backdoor for one...
It's hard to break your encryptions. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Don't you have an iPhone, probably? Oh my gosh. Yep.
Yeah, so ignoring the fact that the Congress was trying to pass a law recently that said, oh, encryption's bad because... we can't get in there, whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't think it passed, and it was just stupid and bad. But yeah, basically that was kind of their whole get up and go. It was, oh, we need to be able to get into the phones. What if there's terrorism? And it's like, well, if I give you access to this phone, everyone in the world can have access to this phone. They just have to find the back door. Yeah, no, the front door is locked and has security windows and a key card, and you have to pass 3 security guards. If I give you a back door that's just open, anybody can just go waltz in there. So what's the point there? Yeah, somebody has to find it, but it's not that hard to find a back door. Happened many times. So that was the whole idea with your phone security. So that was a part of it. The other part I wanted to discuss was a little more direct. When you get pulled over, what do you do? And kind of go with it that way.
I know
that was the other half of what I wanted to
without
mention.
a warrant, you don't have to allow them to search your car. I don't know what else. Go ahead. You tell me.
Yep. So, if you are ever pulled over, you really only have to do 2 things. And the same thing happens for for like DUI stops in most states. I'm not going to say for everyone, not DUI stops, but like the DUI checkpoints when they want to check things.
Mhm.
You really normally have to only do, again, check local laws, but like 90% of states, all you have to do is go ahead and hand them your driver's license and your registration, because that's what they want to see. Hand that over and be like, or maybe insurance too, depends on the state. So those 3 documents, you hand them through the window, and you don't answer a word that they ask. Because here's the thing, a cop is not there for you. A cop doesn't care about you. A cop at that point, once they've pulled you over or are talking with you, has one job, and that is to find a reason to arrest you or to validate the reason that they stopped you. Because they've stopped you for a crime. Whether or not you've committed a crime doesn't matter. They've stopped you for a crime. So at this point, you are effectively having to go ahead and exercise your rights. Use your Fifth Amendment. So if a cop pulls you over and says, hey, what's going on? Go, here's my license, here's my registration, here's my insurance, here's my name, and just give them the minimal information. And the most important question you can ask is, am I under arrest and may I leave? And those questions are huge. So if you're being arrested, though, so back to the phone, you have the right to record your own arrest, or not even just arrest. You have the right to record your own traffic stop. So if somebody pulls you over, the ACLU actually has an app that you can go ahead and click a button. Hey, I've been pulled over. It starts recording, and it also takes that recording and starts uploading it to the internet on the fly. It's kind of like streaming on a Facebook, because I know there was recently a guy was streaming a Facebook live stream, and he was like, hey, whatever. It was this right-wing nut, and he pulled over, and he was like, hey, I'm just going to start recording this in a Wendy's. And apparently a guy was being arrested for robbing a bank, and the guy was just like, hey, this is probably going to be the most boring live stream ever, but I'm going to just go ahead and record it. Quote unquote, according to the cops, the guy they were arresting said, that man over there, and pointed at him, is my accomplice. And so the cops came over to the guy who was the quote unquote accomplice and basically straight arrested him out on the spot. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, there are so many things he violated. And so they walked over to the guy who was recording and said, you can't record. And he goes, yes, I can. We're in a public space. And they go, you can't record this. Turn off the phone. I need to delete the footage. It's like, no, none of that's correct. That's all right. That's all wrong. There's nothing correct about that at all. And it just escalated from there. He was arrested, and there was no right or valid reason for him to be arrested. Violated his constitutional rights, because cops do that all the time. And so you have to know your constitutional rights. So pretty much the most important questions you can ask are, if you get pulled over, start recording. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you were speeding. It doesn't matter if you were actually at fault. Start recording. You don't have to give them the evidence that you were pulled over. You just now have it for your own sake if you need it.
So I'm going to tell you a crazy...
So the fifth...
A crazy quick story, which I don't think I would have done anything necessarily differently, but... So I was driving a 1997 Nissan Sentra. I think that's right. It was an old car. It was in decent shape, but it was it was an old person car. It was a great aunt of mine that my grandparents helped me get when she stopped driving, right? And I was driving, and from a red light, I went to drive, and this cop turned on his lights behind me, right? I just drove away from the green light, and he pulled me over, and I pulled into a parking lot, and he comes up to my window, and he asked for my license and registration, proof of insurance, maybe. He goes back to the car with it. He asks me, actually, I don't remember if he did it the first time or second time. He asked me to step out of the car. He gets me out of the car. I step out. He goes back to his car, doors open, he's running stuff. I'm standing outside of my car waiting, and I'm like, I didn't speed, I didn't jump off from the light, I was so confused. And I'm like, well, whatever. Anyways, but I go, am I in trouble here? He goes, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and I'm like, okay. And he's like running my stuff and he's looking and he spends like 10, 15 minutes. I had a friend of mine in the car. Like we're just sitting there and he's like, he goes, your car shot off kind of loud. I had a 1997 Nissan Sentra. It was a grandpa car. There was nothing on my car. I'm like, what? And I was like, yeah. He goes, is there any modifications to your car? And I go, no. Like, my grandparents helped me get it. And he's like, He's like, and so he's like looking up all my stuff. And then he just lets me go. Just all of a sudden, he's like, all right, you're good to go.
Right.
Just be careful out there, just for the fun of it. So cops will just freaking mess with you for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're white people. We get away with this.
I know. Well,
the problem is,
can I tell you though? Can I tell you it was a black officer? I don't know. I don't know if there was some weird like I'm gonna do this because I can because of 60, 80, 100 years of bullshit treatment, but like it really was. It was.
You're in what?
I'm in Florida, but I'm just saying no.
What? No, not just in Florida. Which county in Florida?
No, I was in Osceola County, Orange County at the time.
Yeah. Orange or Osceola, those are very different counties.
I was right by Crossroads in Orlando.
Osceola.
Okay, there you go.
Osceola. Makes sense. Osceola sheriff has been a complete idiot for years and years and years. But no, and that's the problem, is that you just got pulled over for nothing. He had no constitutional or legal right to pull you over, and he pulled you over anyways, and you had to deal with it. You lost time, and there's literally nothing you can do about that. Like, you could try to sue, but the problem is, all right, you keep COVIDing over there because you got beer. Beer is supposed to go in your gullet, not your lungs.
Oh, dang it! That's where I messed it up. I can't smoke
lungs.
Beer. Damn it!
Yeah.
No. Okay, go ahead.
I know. But yeah, no, that's the problem, is that
there's nothing he can do
counter to that because you weren't harmed during the process. Yes, that man violated your constitutional rights. He completely shit on them, and yet you still have to sit there and take it. Now, luckily, you're a white guy, so it wasn't so bad. But had you been a Hispanic guy, because that's what Osceola is known for hating on, I don't know that it would have turned out the same.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But you were pulled over for no reason whatsoever. There was just nothing acceptable about it. I was
harassed for the fun of it, basically.
Yeah, the correct answer, though, is always respond to none of the officer's questions, and except for your name, be like, I plead the fifth. He could be like, hey, what time is it? I plead the fifth. Like, I don't want to respond to you. I refuse. So you tell the officer, like, right from the get-go, I'm not going to respond to any of your questions. I do not want to do that. I will give you the basic legal. Here is my name. He asks for your birthday, fine, whatever. Give him whatever he needs, the basics. Give him your ID, that stuff, and be like, that's all I'm going to do. And then the only question you ask is, am I under arrest and am I free to leave? Those are the two questions. That's it. It doesn't matter. Now, yeah, if you think it's a speeding ticket and you think you can talk your way out, you can try, but it's probably not going to work most of the time, unless you're a white guy. Hey. You do you. You make it work. But that's what I'm saying is, like, just don't give them information, because the whole point of a cop, once they've gotten you in their spot, is not to help you. The only thing that they will do is use that information against you. Think of the Miranda rights. Anything you say or do can and will be used against you in a court of law.
True.
That's what they tell you, and they aren't lying.
Right.
So, I don't know. That was my whole thing.
No, I liked it. I thought that was worth talking about. So basically, whether you're guilty of something or innocent of something, do the bare minimum. You don't owe them anything more. That's your rights. And
you shouldn't ever owe them anything more.
Right.
That's the wonderful part of it.
I like it.
Like we have rights. Let's exercise them. I'm all about exercising our rights to the fullest extent that we can. That's the whole point of your rights. If you don't use them, you lose them.
Right.
So use your rights.
And you got to fight for your right to party. Okay.
What we did. We partied.
That's right.
We partied hard tonight.
Yes, we did. 3 shots, multiple beers.
All right.
Zach, anything?
I think that we...
Yeah, it's good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. In that case, we're going to ask everyone who's still listening at this point. Make sure you have liked, subscribed, and maybe even share Facebook, Instagram. Can I tell you, I've had some recent listeners telling other people that they need to become listeners. I actually watched someone tell someone to subscribe. They walked them through subscribing the other day to Alcoholically Correct. Basically,
Nice.
we got a new
it.
subscriber, and I watched it happen, and it was at another listener and subscriber's hands. So we appreciate our loyal fans. But yeah, we as you know, we may not always be technically correct, but Zach, we always will be what?
We will always be alcoholically correct.
I'm gonna say alkali. Alkali. Let's say goodbye to that, and cheers.
Cheers.